Welcome back. Surprise, everybody. I, yeah, we're back. We're here. I, it's been some time. A lot has happened, and I'm here to share some of my experience with you guys. Where have I been? What happened? All the things. But what I will say is that I have a lot in store for you guys in 2025. 2024 definitely taught me a lot. So I want to share all of those experiences with you guys, good and bad. Again, this is a journey that we're on together. And so I hope you guys are ready. I hope you guys are so excited. I'm excited to be back. Even just recording this right now, is a huge moment, and I feel very overwhelmed and just grateful that I'm back in this place again. And I just can't wait to share with you all that I've been experiencing and what I've been learning and what I've just been discovering within myself and about life. So, welcome to season 2 of You Have Something to Say podcast. So, the biggest question is, where have I been? I've still been here, just not necessarily present, obviously. Um, Last year was a year of rediscovering um, in so many ways. And there were certain situations that happened in my life that was really kind of preparing me to lead me up to this point. Um, I'll kind of start back in the beginning, when God initially gave me the word about starting this podcast and reminding me that I had something to say and I no longer had to be silent in my life about, my testimonies, and also to remind people to give them a voice and reminding you guys that you have something to say and your words are valuable and powerful. And, that was a huge step for me to take. I felt like God was giving me a task that I didn't necessarily feel qualified for. And because I was still dealing with and still dealing with certain personal internal things that I know don't align with his word. And so I felt just unqualified, like, well, who am I? Who am I to come out here and talk about you and talk about your word and talk about my testimonies and my experiences and all of these things. And, something that I've learned, in which I'll share in other planned episodes, is just that, God calls the unqualified. He's the one that qualifies us. And oftentimes, we think that we have to qualify ourselves, or we think that other people have to validate that we're qualified to do certain things. And that's not the case. He calls people out wherever they're at in their life, whatever stage they're in. And he's like, listen, I chose you and I have a plan for you and I'm going to use you. And it doesn't matter what people have to say, and if they agree with me or they think like, why did he choose her? He's like, this is what I get to do. This is, I'm God. I get to decide those things. And so essentially, that's what it was. And I was just like, okay, well, I'm gonna kind of go with the flow and see how this goes. And I felt like it was going great for a while. My first few episodes was a very healing experience for me. And, based off of some of the feedback and the responses, it seems like it touched many people, which is ultimately, is what I want and what I think God wants in all of this, in orchestrating and in using me as an instrument in this process. And then somewhere along the way, I had some personal issues kind of happening in my life, and I felt like God was kind of calling me into a season of isolation. And so in that, part of that was isolating myself from even this. I began to kind of like really focus on myself. I got really back into my fitness journey, and I was trying to establish the grounds of consistency. something I've always struggled in, and to this day, it's still a work in progress, But I'm just more conscious of it, and at that time, I was like, I really need to work on my discipline, and I really need to work on consistency, because if I can't have that within me as an individual person, then how I'm going to be able to provide that for all of you in this. And so that's really kind of where my mind was at. And it really took some months. And I'll say I was extremely proud of myself for a good period of time, for remaining disciplined and remaining consistent. And some way along the way, I lost my way. And without getting into too much specific detail, there are certain things that I do have to kind of keep private, but um, I allowed outside influences to really kind of dictate my emotions in a sense, giving people too much power over my thoughts, over my emotions, and that really kind of made me spiral a little bit more towards the end of last year. I remember just kind of getting to a point where I no longer recognized who I was anymore. And I was operating in a sense that just wasn't me. I wasn't true to myself. I wasn't true to my values. And, you know, society can make you feel and think that you have to do things a certain way. And, oh, you're so young, you have so much time. Oh, this should just be the greatest time in your life right now, and you should live it up to full capacity. And I mean, just all of these different things. And I feel like for a moment, I let that kind of get inside my head. But the reality is that some of the things that I felt like I was participating in just really wasn't me. And I didn't like the way that I felt anymore. And I was just like, no, I need to kind of get back to basics. I need to get back to who I know Trish really is at the core. But not only just that, but really getting in position for who God is calling me to be and where He is calling me to be. And just being intentional about listening to His voice and being obedient. Man, being obedient is just, could be one of the hardest things that we have to do sometimes in our walk and in our call with God. But how rewarding it can also be. Last year I got to experience many different things. I met a ton of new people in my life and built new relationships. I also had to learn how to let go of old relationships, where certain spaces just no longer serve you. Certain people just no longer serve you. And I'll say this publicly, if I've ever detached myself from somebody or ended a friendship or any of those things, you didn't gain me as an enemy. I still wish you the best and want the best, and I will still pray for you, and I still care for many people that I had to let go. But I came to the realization that I had to choose me first and what was best for me, which kind of also brings me into, part of this year where I've gotten to this place where I realized that I needed to really learn how to love myself. Stepping into 2025, wow. I I don't know how else to explain it, but wow. Like, I was not expecting this year to begin the way that it did. I think, and sometimes I think it's funny to think this way, but when we think about New Year's, we're like, oh, it's a new year, it's a new me, it's a fresh start, and all of these things, because it's such a big monumental moment all over the world, right? New Year's. And, but the reality is that New Year's is just another day. And, it's not like a light switch that is just going to, wipe the slate clean. That's not how it works. But I think in our head internally, we like to think of it that way. And yeah, it wasn't that. The beginning of this year has been extremely rough, and I feel like part of, my ending of 2024, it kind of spilled over into this year. Um, but I will say these last, I would have to say probably the last 7 months, I have just learned so much about myself, uh, good and bad, good and bad. But like I always preach, that life is really all about perspective. I am so grateful for this moment. You guys have no idea. I am so grateful for this moment. I'm so grateful that I get to experience growth. Even though this hurts so much, I can't tell you guys how many days I have just couch rotted and cried and didn't want to feel the way that I was feeling, looking for ways to escape my emotions, distracting myself. Um, so many things I've tried to just forget about certain things, but you have to sit in it. Like you have to, and not sit in it and stay in it, but you have to let yourself feel these emotions. I had gotten to a point that I was just so good at um, ignoring my emotions and distracting myself. But what I learned at the end of last year, a situation had happened in my life, and I remember thinking to myself, like, oh, I'm handling this a lot better than what I used to. I was like, I remember, if something like this would have happened to me, then I probably would have reacted in this way and that way. And because I wasn't seeing those old ways, I thought I was handling it well. Well, come to find out, I was not. I just found new ways to try to, um, in handling this particular situation. And I was spiraling in a different way. And I didn't realize it. And, and in that, came a lot of disappointment within myself, within others, a lot of shame. I just wasn't proud of the way that I was moving and the way that I was handling it once I realized that, oh, I'm reacting this way because of this situation. And it didn't look like my old ways, but no, you find a new way to kind of express and release and whatever, right? And so I'm just grateful that I was able to catch myself before things went too far. And, so stepping into this new year, a lot's happening. It seems like there was a lot of attacks on people's families this year. I lost a family member in January, a couple weeks in after the New Year's, and that hit my family really, really hard. Amongst other things, and hearing some of my other friends that are just going through so much, within themselves and with their families, and this year has just not been easy by any means. One thing that I am so grateful for that I started back up this year was therapy. I went back to therapy. I'm so happy that I did. Oh my gosh. If you guys have not been, I strongly encourage you, let this be your sign. Go to therapy. It is honestly the best thing ever. I'm the first person to go to therapy in my entire family. And we're talking about mom and dad's side of the family. And I first went when I was 18 years old, when I was struggling severely from anxiety and not realizing that anxiety was driven from my childhood trauma. And ever since then, it has just opened my eyes, and it has helped me throughout the years in, major situations, and just helping me to process and regulate. And so after experiencing what I went through in 2024, I realized, like, okay, I need to really sit down and sort out what I'm experiencing. I'm repeating certain cycles, and this is the part, like, when we have to take accountability of our part that we play in certain situations in our life. right? It's so easy for us to want to blame other people and like, oh, you're doing me wrong and you did this and you did da. Yeah, but in my case, I'm not necessarily doing anything bad to somebody directly, but I am allowing certain things to happen. And where is that stemming from? Lack of boundaries, lack of self-love, lack of self-respect. It can be so many different things. And so, I realized like, okay, I have to get down to the root of my problem and why I allow certain things to happen. So that led me getting back into therapy. And it has just been absolutely hard and amazing all at the same time. I am just constantly learning so much about myself. And one of the biggest things was realizing that I wasn't operating and loving myself truly, right? We can think about like, yeah, I love myself and enough. I'm not going to walk in front of a car for it to hit me. I think oftentimes we think about that, but sometimes loving yourself means in the smallest ways. One of them being saying no, which is a very hard thing for me to say because I do have people pleasing. What's the word I'm looking for? Anyways, where I can be a people pleaser, right? And so saying no, establishing boundaries with people, it doesn't, regardless of how much you may love and care for them, but realizing that the interaction it isn't healthy and it isn't good. And so I've been on, that journey, and I'm so glad that I did it. I'm so glad that I did it. I'm so glad I went back, and I'm so grateful that God continues to call me and keeps pulling me in this direction. And, I think about, in the Bible when it talks about when he left the 99 sheep to go get the one, like, I feel like I'm that one, and I have moments where I stray off and he's like, no, I'm going to go find you and I'm bringing you back. Like, and what a blessing, and how much more can you demonstrate, a stronger love than God who keeps fighting for you, who keeps coming back for you, and keeps placing people in your life to remind you of those things, and yes, he gives us our free will. We get to decide if we want to embark on that with him. And so I'm grateful that he doesn't give up on me ever. I'm grateful that he's given me chances, although I don't want to take advantage of that either. It's kind of like forgiveness where, we know that God already grants us forgiveness and he does forgive us, but I'm not going to say like, okay, well, I'm about to do this and it's going to be okay because I know God's going to forgive me anyway. So I don't want to have that mindset of that. This morning I had to ask God for forgiveness, or last night rather. And I told him that. I was like, I don't want to take advantage of your forgiveness. It's precious. It's something to be valued. I'm grateful for it. Grateful for your grace and your mercy. And, in this season, I've got to not only put a magnifying glass on myself internally, but even those around me. Somebody like me, I genuinely love on people wholeheartedly. No ulterior motives. I don't really want or expect anything in return. And I genuinely want to help people. I honestly, it's so funny because every time I think about it, I just feel like me giving you like the biggest, most comforting, warmest hug you might have ever received. And I feel like that's what I want to spill out onto everybody, that not only that I meet in person and interact with, but even you guys that are viewing. Like, I genuinely just want to give people a hug and let it be such a healing experience. And, it hurts my heart when I see people that I care about and I know that I can't save them. And I know that I can't necessarily help them because that's something that has to come from within. You have to decide that you want better for yourself. You want to you have to get to a point where you can take true accountability and being 1,000% honest with yourself, you know, and also just having integrity. That is going to be an episode. That's going to be a solo episode later on. Is integrity, and but it does hurt my heart, and sometimes you just gotta know when to let certain people go. And again, I not wishing them bad, harm, or any of those things. I wish the quite opposite of that. I want to see people heal. I want to see people, deal with their past traumas and, just recognizing certain things within themselves. Because who God is calling you to be, that person that's on the other side, has so much more than you could have ever imagined staying back there, and that's something that I encourage myself with. I encourage all of you guys with. In today's world, in society, with social media, there's a lot of facade going on. It's like a stage, and I think it's easy for all of us to get caught up into it. I have plenty of times. And then you kind of get to a point where it's just like, okay, what's real? And I can't keep living in this delusional world, like I'm just on autopilot and coasting through things and like, oh yeah, like everything's good and everything's fabulous and I feel fabulous. No, you get to a point where it's like you got to sit down and really have conversations with yourself. Ask yourself questions. Why am I doing this? Why do I feel this way? And what can I do, or who can I lean on to kind of help me? Because I guarantee you, any of the people that I've had to kind of let go in my life, if they genuinely came to me and were like, hey, Trish, like I really want to do better. I want to heal. I want to be a good person, whatever. Like, what could you share with me that can help? What are some first steps? Like, what does that look like? I would absolutely entertain that conversation. But again, you have to come genuinely. And, so another thing that I learned too this past year is that, God allows me to have a lot of encounters with different people, and amazing encounters at that. But sometimes when people come into your life, you don't always necessarily know why they're there. I don't, in most cases, I don't think I've ever really known, but I don't believe in coincidences. I never have. Everything is happening as it should for one reason or another. And I may find out the reason, or I may never know the reason. But that's for God to know. But what I do know is that he's going to use me for his good in some capacity, right? And so sometimes I've had a problem with misconstruing my purpose of meeting somebody and thinking in my head like, oh, okay, well, maybe I met this person for this reason, right? When in all reality, God was like, no, that's not why I brought this person into your life. I'm going to share something with you or bring something into you to share to them, right? And literally the whole point of me meeting them could have been to maybe relay that one message. And that really could have been it. To relay the one message. And that's like, that little mustard seed of faith, just planting it inside of them. And so I've actually had people that I've even apologized to for confusing the intention of why I came across them. And that was different for me. That was, the first time I'd actually ever experienced or acknowledged that that's, that this is what that was. And so more or less, that's kind of like just what I've been dealing with. And so now I'm kind of in this space of just getting back on track, getting back on here, really allowing God to use me, continue to stay consistent and disciplined, doing good in work, which, by the way, I ended up starting a new job last year. That was also part of my whole transition, and that's been going great. Um, and just taking some time for me, like really taking some time for me, not allowing too many distractions, um, learning to love myself, and what does that look like, and it can be simple little things. It doesn't mean that I need to go fly on a jet to Italy and buy me a Louis Vuitton bag, like, although that would be great. But, it can be the simple things. Um, Taking care of yourself, your body, um, doing your skincare, telling yourself positive affirmations. That's something that has helped me. I can't tell you how many times I have stood in my home and just started calling out all the blessings, right? And all just the wonderful things, and just thanking God, and reminding myself of who He says I am. Not who I think I am, and not who other people try to say that I am. What does He say about me? And my therapist actually had me write a letter to my younger self as if she were my daughter. And that was the hardest thing I have ever had to write in my life. And she was basically saying, hey, if this was your daughter in your position, what would you say to her? What kind of advice or encouragement or any of those things would you say to her? And when I tell you, I sobbed my eyes out writing that letter. But it's so true. I used to keep a picture of myself it was a picture from when I was about 5 years old. And I used to keep it as my screensaver, and I would look at it constantly, daily, because I'm always picking up my phone. But it was just a nice reminder of, this is the little girl that I'm fighting for. This is the little girl that deserves so much, and she's just so wonderful, and she's just so beautiful, and God has chosen her, and God doesn't forsake her, and He keeps coming back to her and calling her to Him, and just all these things. And so writing that letter was, again, very hard for me. It was very emotional, but it's like, if I can say those things to my younger self, if I can say these things to you, I should be able to say them to myself. One thing I'm really honing in on is, I don't want to be preaching to people about the goodness of God and, just the goodness of life and all of those things. But I really want to walk in what I'm saying, and being extremely intentional about that, and having integrity behind that. Like, that's the place that I'm in right now. And so, yeah, it has been quite the journey, to kind of get back here to this place. I can't tell you how many nights I've dreamt of recording this next episode. Like, how am I going to say it? What am I going to say? Like, what do I tell them? Like, how much do I tell them? And, all the things, and feeling nervous and fear. Fear kept arising. Shame kept arising. A lot of different emotions to kind of get me here. But I feel like, for you guys, it may seem just like, oh, it's just another video. But for me, taking the stance and being obedient to even just record this here today, it's a stance against the enemy. It's a stance against his plan to throw me off track and to bring distractions. And he knows what my weaknesses are, and he's going to keep, trying, because God is calling me to do something amazing and good in this world, and putting my stamp here. And of course, he wants to distract me. He wants to throw me off, all of those things. And so even in this, I am defeating the enemy and telling him, like, no, you're not going to win this battle, because my God is so big that stands behind me, and it's going to keep pushing me and encouraging me, and won't forget me, to keep doing what he's calling me to do. And again, this isn't about recognition for me at all. I am just the instrument that he's using. This is all to give him glory and to be obedient into what it is that he wants me to do. So, I mean, I'm, I'm proud of myself today for this. I'm proud that I'm getting this, done. I'm proud that, I'm here and I'm taking a stance, regardless of what anything or anybody thinks about me and the way the enemy tries to come in and rob, kill, and destroy. And he's not going to. He's not going to succeed in any of that. But nonetheless, I am so happy to be back here with you guys and giving you a glimpse of my life and what's kind of been happening over the last almost a year, it seems like. And just ready to kind of go full throttle with this and get back into the swing of things, get back into, a schedule with this, and really just connecting with you guys again. I love hearing your guys' comments and your experiences. I know I said this before, but, I have my email below. You guys can always email me with your testimonies and your stories if you want to just talk and share that with me, or if you want it to be a topic that we discuss here on the podcast. So yeah, I'm very excited and I'm happy to be here. And this love feels so familiar, and I'm really, really grateful for it. And I hope that, if somebody relates to this message today, then, send me a message. Let me know. Let's talk about it. This is why we're here, to share our testimonies and the highs and the woes of life and what we're going through and how is God showing up and helping us to maneuver through these things. This is exactly why. To be able to connect with one another. You might be going through some of the same situations that I've gone through, and I may have a piece of information that can help you in the right direction. And again, it's still a process. It's still unfolding, and I'm still learning so much. But I'm just taking you guys along the journey with me. And even if this sounds like this is all over the place, this is real life. This is real life. I'm not here to try to look perfect for you guys and make sure everything's done exactly to the T or whatever. Like, this is just real life. This is real. This is raw. I want to be transparent. And sometimes that's really hard to do, and putting certain business out there. But if me having to put my business out there to some extent is going to help somebody, then it's worth it. We live in a life and in society where a lot of people lie about a lot of different things, and we're not fully transparent about, the things that we're struggling with, and we don't know how powerful our testimony is. If we were just to open up and be like, hey, I struggle with this. And somebody in that group might be like, you know what? I do too. I thought I was the only one. You don't have to be the only one. So if I have to put all my stuff out there to let you know that you aren't the only one that was going through this and suffering through that or whatever, hey, then so be it. And if people want to judge me based off of my stories and my testimonies and things that I've done, good and bad, so be it. It's all for the glory of God at the end of the day. That's what I'm here for. So I don't want to keep rambling on, but I do want to say thank you. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for taking the time to watch today. I have a lineup of some great topics to go over in the weeks and the months coming ahead. But if you guys have any specific requests of topics and things that you guys want to talk about, do not hesitate. You can send me an email or you can send me a DM on Instagram. I would be happy to read over that and go over those things. So yeah, so that's where I've been. That's what's been going on. And now we're back and we're here. So thank you guys for watching, and always remember that you have something to say.